Good morning, everybody. You're watching SmallCapSteve Live. We got a two-guest episode. We got Keith Driver from Earth Renew joining us, and then we're going to have Justin Holland and potentially Brent Harris from Eguana Technologies join us afterwards. Obviously, the talk of the day is the inflation number came in hot. I was watching CNBC this morning. They said it seems surreal that inflation couldn't go up, and it did go up. That was interesting. Shockingly, gold's down. The 10-year yield is up, which means that the bonds are down. Lumber's back under 1,500. And a bunch of gas stations along the East Coast are running out of gas. So, lots of stuff going on. So buckle up. Let's get started. Keith, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So this is the first time you've actually been on our live stream. We've had you on with Cassandra on the Daily Dive a few times. Let's start with the quick little overview of Earth Renew. What is the company? What do you guys do?
Sure. So we produce high-quality regenerative and organic fertilizers. So we upcycle manures and other byproducts, wastes that have value as a soil conditioner, and turn them into the standard fertilizer products that standard form-wise, that farmers can apply to their soils as part of a regenerative agriculture setup. So we take undervalued products, put them together, dry them out, use the waste heat from our power generation to create the fertilizers, and then make them available in ways farmers can use them in conventional equipment.
Okay, so you guys recently did an acquisition with a company called Replenish Nutrients. So this is obviously a pretty large acquisition. What can you tell us about Replenish?
Sure. So Replenish was the marketing arm that we were missing. So we had the technology to produce them. We were struggling with how we were going to, prove market fit and how we were going to get in front of customers. And so we started talking to the Replenish guys. That escalated to an acquisition. I mean, they're on track for 9.9. We're doing everything we can to get that to 10 million worth of sales for the year, selling organic and regenerative products. So their products, they have a range of products that have nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, and our products fit within those. So they have customers that are buying the products that we're going to be selling. And so together we have the ability to take away that, how are you going to get that product to market risk? So we went from a company that had nominally $500,000 of electricity revenue with a plug of revenue from our fertilizer to come, to now we're a business that will have 10.5, 12 million for this calendar year of revenue into those markets, with the plug of fertilizer revenue to follow soon thereafter. As a collective entity, we're at about 40,000 tons of fertilizer, and we're going up to 400,000 tons of fertilizer is our growth plan.
So just so that I'm understanding this correctly here, Replenish they're kind of more of a distributor of fertilizer products. Is that right?
Yeah, so they were in the distribution game, and they were looking to integrate backwards because the recognition was they were making blends of products and they needed to move to the granule form. And we were in the granular form looking to find our way to market. So there was this sort of technology overlap point where we were both looking at making the products in the same way. They just were a marketing entity that were going to have to build their own production capacity, and we're a production company looking for marketing capacity. So you put those two together, and now you've got a end-to-end production through distribution company that allows us to get those products to market.
What does their distribution footprint look like in terms of, like, where are they distributing and how many provinces type thing?
Sure. So we do Alberta, Saskatchewan, a little bit into Manitoba, and then North Dakota and Montana right now. We've got distributorships down there that are carrying our products. And that's the focus for the next little while. We've got folks that are, because we don't sell all of our product direct to farmer. We want to go to what they call retail in farming, which is those, sort of rural distributors, some big, some small, And so we want to sign those guys up to carry our product so that they can be our distribution. We want to grow that base. So we've been doing that for the 40,000 tons we have now. And as we move to 400, we've got to find more and larger distributors, both by geography and by volume.
So with you acquiring the replenish distribution angle, are you looking to grow that in addition to Earth Renew's own distribution paths?
They effectively become our distribution path. So they've got a set of products that we can slide into with our own product to make the final end solution. So we at Earth Renew, we produced an ingredient, right? We produced the nitrogen side of that fertilizer, and they had the potassium, the phosphate, the potash, and the sulfur solutions. So you put that together, and now you've got the full solution. They were buying those products individually, and now we'll be able to produce them ourselves, grab a little more margin. Like, we're talking a business that tracks with the large guys like Agrium and folks like that. The largest fertilizer plays at that 33%. Our margin for the year is 32.5% at the moment. So we're hitting that gross margin, and as you scale, the gross margins nominally stays the same because you price off the same basis as everybody else, but your volume grows. And so we're looking to, as we go from 10 million to 100 million in sales, you're still looking at 33% gross margin.
So Nutrien, I'm pulling this up here. They trade at, pull this up here on wide charts. They trade at, or just be approximately 1.5 times sales. But they obviously aren't going to have the growth profile you guys are going to have with having gone from nothing to, there's some inorganic revenue there because you're acquiring companies. But I mean, you've effectively gone from nothing to, you guys had your electricity plays. So, which recently you guys put out a corporate update. I think that was about $500,000 on Q1 in electricity revenue, give or take. And now you're adding this distribution company. It's approximately $10 million in revenue. So that's a pretty strong top line growth trajectory.
Yeah, I mean, we're tracking $1 million to $1.5 million a month. So the for this year, we're going to hit our 12 million for the calendar year. Obviously, there's some rationalization that the Replenish guys were on a July to June corporate year end, and they've now, with this transaction, they're going on to our January to December. So their target through June 30th for their calendar year was 9.9. We're gonna do everything to get to that 10+ million range. But for the year, this calendar year, our reporting year, by the time you add back in the electricity revenue, which should be $1 million, $1.5 million, depending on when the crypto guys hook their units up and we start selling that power behind the fence, we should get to $12-14 million of revenue for the year. If wind at our backs, we can get the expansion that we want to get done this summer.
Okay, I actually wanted to ask about that. So you guys are going to have some crypto mining companies that are using your electricity. How does that work? Are they going to be setting up like mining hardware nearby?
Sure. So the facility we actually had the space right beside our power generator. Now, as you know, we take the waste heat from our power generation to use in drying our manure, and the rest of that electricity just goes onto the grid, which has been really good to us the first quarter of the year. It was cold in Alberta, and all sorts of issues with transmission, that kind of thing, that helped us out. What this allows us to do is to run our turbine 24/7, selling that power to the Bitcoin mining operation. And then when we signed another deal with Enel, which is one of the large multinational utility players, where the rest of that power will sit as what they call spinning reserve. So because we're on, and all we have to do is hit the button to ramp up, we can provide a service to the grid of being able to ramp up and down really quickly for them. So we get paid to sort of sit and idle because we've got the cryptocurrency guys. Putting those two deals together unlocks like $1.5 million in revenue. Last year we did about $500,000 in total sales. Well, we did that in the first quarter. We're going to do that again through the balance of the year because of on the same basis through the rest of the year because of the crypto and the Enel contracts to get those done. It's not really core to our business, but we're just maximizing the asset that we have. And we're going to need that heat, so we're going to have the turbine running.
Okay, so
if I'm understanding this correct, sorry. if I'm understanding this correctly, the cryptocurrency is going to serve as your base load power, and then you can still operate as a peaking facility as demand requires, effectively.
Yeah, and we have the ability to turn them off if we need to provide more power to the grid. So when the grid price in Alberta spikes up to $900 or $700 as it's done so far this year, we can actually turn them off. We have to have them up about 90% of the time, and the power in the grid in Alberta peaks about 7% of the time. So it shouldn't keep us from catching any of the big peaks, but the other 93% of the time it allows us to be operating and be ready to be spinning reserve to jump on the grid at a moment's notice. We have to be able to turn on in 15 minutes, or we'll be on already. So it's easy enough for us to do that way. It also gives us a bit of exposure to crypto, because how we structured that deal was we get paid a base amount for the power, and then we get paid in equivalent price adjusted for the crypto. So if crypto goes up, as it did, I mean, we signed that deal, I think I started negotiating that deal about $40,000 US. Now it's at what, 50 some odd for Bitcoin. So we get a little bit of upside as crypto goes. And that was just, we don't want it on our books because it complicates the business that we're in, but a little bit of exposure to the upside was something we were comfortable with, because we've covered our costs on the power generation.
Mm-hmm. So let me pull up the financial projections you guys had on your deck. This is in March. Apologies if this is a little bit dated. Okay, so we got you got your forecast here. You're looking at somewhere from about 10 million to about 11.7 million over the next few years. Gross profit 28 to 30%. EBITDA of about 1 to 2.2 million. Does this factor in the full upside, or is this just replenish?
So all we could do, because of securities laws and everything, was report what the forecasts were that replenish what we did the deal based on. Okay. And so these are the numbers that we did the deal based on. It shows very low organic growth, doesn't show them expanding, doesn't show our product flowing through them. So we put them side by side so that people could sort of imagine how that would come together. We're going to exceed these financials for the 2022, 2023 years, because we've already got projects in place. Now that we're a combined entity, the project in Regina is, it's 100,000 tons. Well, at an average of about $310 a ton, which is what we sell our products for on average, that's $31 million in revenue when we get that project online. So we're working to do that for Q3 of next year, and then it'll take a bit of time to ramp up, but we're going to start seeing that kind of chunky growth from the combined entity. On their own, they were just a marketing organization that wasn't going to be able to expand its production and was going to be limited, and that's where we bought them. What we can do is unlock that with the ability to do projects and capacity development.
How much of a factor is demand? So you're able to produce $30 million based on producing that product, but are you actually able to sell it all?
Yeah, so we're sold out this year. We're flat out sold out. We actually had to convert some customers from granulated product to blended product because we couldn't. Demand was outstripping supply. We sell fundamentally an NPKs fertilizer priced competitively to conventional fertilizers. And the way we can do that is because we get our feedstocks for not free, but for cheap, because we're upcycling waste products from other industries. So we're selling effectively a conventional product. It happens to be organic certified. It happens to be suitable for regenerative agriculture, but we sell on the same index commodity basis as other folks do. So we're not really selling a new product. Now we have to convince people that this product from a new company is equivalent and works in their equipment the same way. We got to pass the sniff test with the farmer, but we're not selling them the same nutrients for more money. We're selling them the same nutrients for the same amount of money, with the added benefit of the carbon going into their soils. So we're not really worried about elasticity in the market where, who's willing to pay a premium for regenerative agriculture. We know people are moving to regenerative agriculture. That's what's going to get them to switch, but they're going to see the same yield. They're going to see the same productivity. They're going to see healthier soils. They're going to get benefits that way without having to pay a massive premium or take that risk themselves.
So I guess the question then is what's the timeline for additional production coming online?
So we've already ordered some of the equipment for this summer. We're going to upgrade our bicycle facility, a little bit of work we're going to try and get done at Strathmore as well. But the big capacity, that next chunk of 100,000 tons, is going to come in 2022. We've got some meetings with the local political folks. We've just completed sort of the feasibility study that we're doing there, and we'll be able to put those results out shortly here. But we're charging away on that, and that facility requires 2 supply contracts and then a number of offtake contracts that we're going to be working on over the next 6 months, where we're going to place that fertilizer a year in advance with the retailer. So that volume is going to be pre-sold. Effectively, how we want our operations to work is we want to lock in that margin, because that's the conventional margin. We want to lock in that margin and effectively operate like a tolling facility, where we're taking a limited amount of technical risk and production risk, but we're buying our feedstocks secured over a long period of time, and we're selling our products indexed to the nutrients, so we're not taking commodity risk. As potash prices go up and down or phos prices go up and down, our products just ride that curve, and we don't have to take that commodity risk. Our dollar margin on that stays the same.
So that's generally in that sort of high 20% margin, even if you're using that tolling model?
Yeah, we budget 20. We're tracking right now. I just got the end of April numbers. We're tracking at 32.5% for the year. And that's, it's always a bit chunky, and there's always the true up at the end of the year to probably get that back down. But we're tracking well on that 30% is the margin that we use when we're considering the business. Like when we're considering what those products are and how we're going to manufacture them, we work backwards from that and then pass through the commodity risk to the industry.
So this might be a really dumb question, and if it is, just call it as it is. How cyclical is the business? Because to me, fertilizer, your farmers are fertilizing early in the season. So what type of sales cycle can we expect for, say, Q3 and Q4 when things aren't necessarily going into the ground, but rather they're coming out?
Well, it's funny. So Q3 and Q4 are really good times. The 2 times of the year that aren't good, January, because every farmer seems to be off in January taking their vacation. All the snow's gone, right? That seems to be the month that every farmer must be in Mexico, as far as we can tell. And then there's a time in July pre-harvest where they're really focused on that. So, for our customers, this May, it'll be our biggest months. May and June will obviously be big months. January was a bit of a slow month, but we were expecting 0 in sales in January. We did just under $1 million in January, because this year is like the hottest year in agriculture. Commodity prices are up, yields are looking good, weather's looking fine, touch wood, so people are really sort of geared up for the year, and that's good for us. By moving to granular fertilizer, that's what allows us to smooth out those cycles. If you're in blended product, you can't store it very well. It's just dirt in a bag, right? Fundamentally is what it would look like to most people. When we put it in a granule, they can put it in a bin. And so you can run selling programs that says, okay, if you take this product in December, I'll give you a 2% discount on your fertilizer because you're going to take it early. And all that it does is allows you to stretch out your cash, but you get that cash early. So fundamentally, you're just playing with timing on that year. So our goal is to even it out. There'll always be a month like January where no one may be answering the call. And in June and July where people don't know if they're going to have a good year or a bad year. So what they're going to put on for fall, everybody's just kind of waiting to make that decision. But our products get applied spring and fall. So we're not just spring, as some people think, like seeds are all spring, right? We're spring and fall. So we're I'm nervous about the fall.
Yeah,
I'm nervous about the fall because it's going to be a big volume game for us this year.
So here's a question that comes in from Susan Floor. Where can we get a sample of your product? Is it available all over Canada and central US? And I want to follow that up with, I was living in the city in Toronto for the last number of years, probably the last 20 years. And then finally COVID got to us. We moved out to the suburbs. I'm now in the suburbs where, the neighbors get unhappy if you don't mow your lawn or you don't have a good looking green lawn. So I'm now suddenly like spent my weekend. I managed to find one Walmart garden center that wasn't under lockdown, talking to this nice old lady about how to like take care of my lawn. So I noticed Replenish does sell a sort of like a turf builder. What can you tell us? Is this a product that you guys will be making, or did this just sort of come with the package? Is there, and to get back to Susan's question, is there any kind of way we can sample this product?
Sure. So from a commercial perspective, we sell through retailers. I'd be happy to send a sample out. They look like little balls of granules of dirt. I use it on my lawn because I have to. If you can't be in the fertilizer business and have a terrible lawn, it's just table stakes. It's table stakes, right? You just can't have that. So yeah, absolutely, we can get samples. We don't sell retail. We've experimented a little bit with doing retail. It's really high margin, but when we looked at the offer we had to go with a major Canadian retailer, it would work out to less than 3% of our total volume for the year, and it would distract the entire team because everything has to be delivered in March, April, May, and it all has to be on pallets and perfectly packaged and whatever. And then if it doesn't sell, they send it back to you. And so it's just a sucker's bet for that. We're focused on large acreage, folks that are converting from conventional, the spray and pray, lotions and potions, to regenerative agriculture where you're building the soil. And so that's where we're spending our time. And that's right now there's, if you're in Saskatchewan, there's retailers like Synergy or CropMax in Alberta or Thorgeson in Montana and North Dakota that have the product and stock it. And if you reach out through the website, we'd be happy to direct you to a local retailer. Or frankly, I'll put some in a jar and I'll mail it to you to send you a sample.
I was joking with our producer, Chris, beforehand that we could make it a Saturday morning SmallCapSteve live special where I learn about gardening. And I put this Replenish fertilizer on my lawn, which hopefully it works, or else it's going to be pretty bad for the stock.
Yeah, my wife's a very patient lady, and there's been a couple times where we've had samples because of COVID. I'm working from home some days and from the office, so I'm having stuff delivered to home. I had a whole bunch of manure delivered to the house, pre-packaged, but it comes on the manifest as manure product, and she's like, "Should I accept this?" I'm like, "Yes, dear. This is how this is how we pay for the house. I promise I'll get it out of the garage as soon as I can." But doing up samples and things like that, we're all sort of making do, but it does make for some fun dinner conversations.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually pretty. I apologize for using the word actually, but I didn't realize that you guys had this kind of revenue path in front of you. If you are, 20,000 tons per year up to 100,000. If you're telling us that you can do top line revenue of $300 per ton, I mean this you've got a potentially pretty large pipeline of revenue in front of you if you're actually able to execute on this sort of timeline and strategy moving forward. Like what this would be, over $100 million revenue in I guess you'd say contracts if you're able to pull this off.
Yeah, so it's perfectly feasible for us to do this. Like the volumes of fertilizer that move, like when we talk about moving 100,000 tons, it seems like an enormous challenge. But at the same time, like we're looking at individual retail locations that are handling 6, 8, 10,000 tons of fertilizer at a time. And so, the logistics of it are a nightmare, and we're going to be hiring more people to deal with trucks because that's the biggest challenge for us. We take ingredients, we mix them, we dry them and blend them and put them into granules and put them in bags and ship them out. We're not perpetual motion. We're not doing anything to make something from nothing. But what we're going to do in Saskatchewan is we're sold out. We need to make more product. And the hardest thing in farming. So farming, they literally bet the farm every year, pardon the pun, on the year's crop, right? And so for them to switch over year is tough because you're risking it all for what if that product doesn't work. So replenished sales were 700 grand 2 years ago, 3.6 last year, and we'll call it 10, 9.9, but I'll bet on 10 this year. So we've got that sort of pace of growth. Even if we just do that year over year, well, I'll be fine. If we keep that pace.
So hold on a second, Keith. I'm about to have an infomercial moment with you, but you mean to tell me that you just acquired a company with that growth profile for like one-time sales?
A little bit less than one-time sales, but yeah.
Wow. Because that's
the problem is they couldn't grow their capacity like on their own. They were going to have I'm sure they could have actually. We're not going to do, but it would have been hard for them to grow the production capacity because they were effectively a marketing and sales organization that had begged and borrowed and stole to get people to make their products for them, blend the products for them. And they built the site in Bicycle, and we're going to expand that this year. But for them to go out and raise, like, it's about $10 million. It's about $100 per nameplate ton to produce this stuff. So if the projects in Regina will cost us $10 million and some land and buildings and equipment. But then we'll have the ability to make $30 million of top line revenue at 30% sales. So it's got a 1 to 1.5 year simple payback on these projects. But if you're just a marketing and distribution company, it's hard to also be a production company and raise money off that basis as a private. So they were private, and it was going to be hard for them to grow. As a combined entity, it's easy for us to grow. We've got production capacity. We've got some of the IP that they needed around drying. And one of the guys, Kevin Erickson, used to work for Earth Renew 10 years ago when it was originally founded. He was one of the guys who worked here. And so he's coming back home. Gerard and I have known each other for years, and he sold his last company to GFL, Green for Life out of Toronto, the waste management company. And he had a compost production facility. So these are guys that I've known from Alberta and have tracked for a decade. And so it's easy to bring them in. We've now got a better entity, a better structure to go out and raise the money to be able to do what we need to do going forward. That
makes a lot of sense. You got me jacked up today. If you're able to do anything like these numbers at 300 times 1.5 times revenue, we can see some tremendous upside. So it's easy for investors to evaluate your performance. You're either going to get this done or you're not. And if you do, it's obviously going to be a heck of a story and something that we're going to love cheering on as fans of Canadian microcaps. So thanks so much for joining us today, Keith. This was fantastic, and we will be rooting for you and watching the story moving forward.
Yeah, keep an eye out. We're going to be moving forward pretty heavy on this Saskatchewan project here in May. So
I'd love to hear that being to share
Saskatchewan. Yeah, I know you are. So,
and by the way, nothing would make Jay happier than if you sent me Lizer and I had to make a video of me doing garden work.
I would absolutely love it.
There's my Friday afternoon, fellas. I just know what I'm doing now. Okay, have a great day, guys. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Thanks Keith. That was fun.
Yeah, I have to say, if we do that video, I will pay for you to wear overalls and get a piece of wheat sticking out of your mouth and everything else.
So there's a bunch of dead grass on this front lawn, and I kid you not. I go to Walmart. The lady explains to me, you want to buy some seeds, some soil. You want to put it all down. And so I'm like walking around my front lawn here in the suburbs of Toronto. I'm in Ajax, and I literally strained my wrist for carrying around this bag of soil and like sprinkling soil on the ground. So if you've heard me complaining recently, it's been
yes, I heard the story earlier and it gave me a good chuckle because classic Toronto Steve.
when I was living in an apartment in the city, I'd go out, I'd stand on my balcony with a cup of coffee, and I'd watch the lawn maintenance team that the building hired do all this work. I find myself doing it. So, but let's keep going with some of these Alberta stories. We've got one of my favorite companies. I think my largest personal holding, Eguana Technologies, joining us. Justin, can you hear us?
I can. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Your camera's not focusing there. Let's see.
Yeah, I can't seem to get the camera to hook up other than just on the laptop, Steve. So I'm not sure what.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Hopefully you can hear me, and I believe Brent Harris will be joining us shortly as well.
I'm excited. I think that our audience has not had the opportunity to chat with Brent yet, so that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, certainly as the founder, and he's the one that had the vision so many years ago. Where these markets would go, particularly on the VPP side of things, and I'm sure it will be very informative for the audience.
Okay, so let's start off with the news this morning. You guys announced a big announcement on the 10 kilowatt battery that you guys are working on, which is, as I understand it, this is higher throughput, and it is going, from my basic understanding, it will be the leading product on the market. Would that be fair, or one of the leading products?
I mean, the market dynamics are changing, and certainly with the VPPs coming on, larger systems with larger capacity are going to be critical. So we believe that it will be a key product. We believe it will also be one of one in the market when we release later this summer. Team has done a great job, as you can tell by the press release that we put out this morning. We are ahead of schedule on this, and we will send in for final certification. But this product will provide homeowners, particularly in California, that have dealt with wildfires and brownouts and blackouts, whole home backup capability. So installations can become simplified where you don't have to worry about sub panels and all this other stuff. And the VPP side of it will be huge for us, given the higher power and the additional battery capacity, which, along with our Evolve product line, is expandable. So it's going to be a very exciting product. I know the sales team has been canvassing some of our dealer partners, which hopefully the audience knows is now above 250. And the response has been fantastic. So we're looking for a very good rollout later this year, and see where that product goes. But we expect it to be front and center late summer.
Okay. So I'm going to come out and ask the one question I'm dying to know personally. What kind of price point can consumers expect on something like this?
So the price point, how we've done this, and basically what we've been competing against is stackable installations, which will become even more challenging for 5 kilowatt products. We have a 5 kilowatt Evolve. On that Evolve, you can install 2 of those to get to 10 kilowatts. However, you have to put in separate panels to each one, and we eliminate that. So the price point we were looking at was to bring in the fully integrated system at a smaller price point than 2 of a competitive system or 3 of a competitive system. So we're targeting to come in somewhere in that 17.5 to 18.5 range for the full home backup product, which would be less than the installation of multiple 5 kilowatt systems.
And that's I know that we probably don't want to have you on here and have you taking shots at other companies or products, but that's right now with the Tesla Powerwall, you actually have to, I guess what they call it, you've got daisy chain them effectively if you wanted that much power, where you've got to connect a bunch of them next to each other with the full power controls and inverter with each battery. Whereas with this one, would the 10 kilowatt be it's modular?
It is modular. Now, there are some new rules coming out in California that will limit how much battery capacity you can install in a residential setting. And what we're able to do because of that modularity is max out that limit. The issue that some of the competitive products, and again, I'm not going to bash any of the competitive products. I think with the demand that's growing in that U.S. market right now, there's going to be a very large pie for all of the key players. But you won't be able to stack because you will go over and above the maximum allowable battery capacity in a residential installation. Because we have on the NMC and the LFP side smaller module increments, we can max that out and provide a better solution from a backup power standpoint for the homeowners. The other thing is that it simplifies the installation because it is a fully integrated system, not the installation of 2 or 3 individual systems.
Okay. So let's get into the. I'm not sure. Have we had you on since the recent raise? I don't recall, but the quarters. You guys discussed that there were some supply issues, which just sort of looking at sort of competitors and other companies in the space, we're hearing about how there is, great demand and some logistic issues. What have you guys done now that you've got, $20 million on your balance sheet to go out and fix some of those logistics and supply chain issues?
Yeah, I mean, the supply chain issues have hammered every company. It's, as a supply chain with a supply chain background, I've never seen anything like this. And just to give you a quick story, we ordered battery modules, for instance, in November that were delivered in the last week of March. And that was fairly typical of what we were seeing on enclosures, anything coming out of Europe, anything coming out of Asia. That congestion is starting to lighten up. One of the things that we were able to do is reroute stuff through multiple ports to open up better opportunity to get supplies. We are positioning the raw material to mitigate any future risks. And one of the notes that we talk internally about right now, which I'm sure the group would find interesting, is we have more raw material in transit and received at this moment in time than we had over the last 18 months of running the company. And that's a very exciting situation, because that's the start of the positioning where you can ramp up those revenue rates, get that predictability. And we've talked, Steve, before, where we're backing up the supply chain to focus on raw material positioning instead of finished goods. I won't go in and bore the audience with what that means, but you can then flex raw material, which gives you consistency on finished goods availability. The inventories are coming in. We have been able to get multiple shipments of batteries in, multiple shipments of enclosures in, and we will start seeing fairly significant ramps in the revenue rates because of that. So a lot has been spent to remedy the risk of supply, and we're excited to see what happens in the coming months. This isn't something that we're planning for next year. This is something that we're starting to roll out at higher rates right now. So very exciting, difficult time for a lot of companies coming through January until now. Hopefully with what the team has done operationally and from a supply chain perspective, we will see consistency in revenue growth because of the positioning of that inventory.
So, and we now have Brent on with us as well. Hey, Brent.
Hi there, Steve.
This is exciting. You guys mentioned getting more integrated in your batteries when you talk about your use of proceeds. So sort of working with potentially some new suppliers, possibly getting involved in the battery management system, the actual BMS. I spent a little bit of time researching this. When I Google a battery management system, I don't really find anything. Like, it takes me to a distributor's website. Is that an area that you think you could get involved in? And really, what is a BMS and how could you get involved there?
Well, the BMS is a critical piece of any lithium battery. It has three basic functions. One is keeping track of how much energy is inside that battery. It's not as simple as it is with lead acid batteries, where you measure the terminal voltage and you get a pretty good idea of how much energy is in the battery. So you've got to keep track of that. You have to make sure the battery is going to last for the duration of the warranty. So there's some protective functions to make sure it's not overcharged or overpowered to reduce the life. And then critically, for some of the batteries, it's a key safety function when you get certified. When the battery gets certified, the battery management system itself is a required safety element to prevent thermal runaway and things like that. Up until now, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to build out that BMS ourselves because of the way the certification has worked. The battery suppliers themselves have had to provide that and get a UL 1973 certification on their battery. But as the market's maturing now, you're going to see it look a little bit more like the smartphone and laptop market, or even like the electric vehicle market, where The BMS is actually a little bit more application specific and doing what's needed in the application. So for example, if you're a battery manufacturer and you sell to Volkswagen, they're not interested in getting a BMS from you. They're going to make their own. Apple makes their own BMS for the battery that's in their iPhones or any of their computers. Because of this maturing of our stationary market and evolution of the standards, we're going to move in that direction, and we're really well placed to do that. We've got great understanding and technology to support battery management systems, and we've done development over the years. We just haven't had the chance to bring it into the market, but that's just going to improve the controls and performance of our system and just make it act more and more just like a seamless consumer product where the battery goes to sleep and wakes up at the right time. So what you see today from the suppliers is just a generic battery management system that's not sure what it's supposed to do, but it just takes care of the battery.
So is the BMS, is it actual sort of like software that tells the cells how to communicate with each other? Is that what I'm understanding?
It's a circuit board with software on it. So it's going to measure voltages and temperatures throughout the battery pack. It measures current and voltage at the output, and often it'll have some control devices. If you need to take a battery out of circuit, that can be done right at the BMS level. So the rest of the system can keep running. If one battery's having an issue or is nearing end of life, it can be removed from the pack so the rest of the pack can go on running as normal.
This sounds incredibly niche-y. How do you go about developing this? This isn't something that you develop on like a standard operating system. This is like you're like programming it into kind of like a tiny little microchip. Is that?
Yes, it's very similar to our PCS. It really becomes the next extension of the PCS. So PCS is most of the electronics in an energy storage system, and we just put our arms around more and more of the total electronics, so everything works better together.
So, Steve, I'll jump in on that too. And one of the things to consider with the BMS development, and from a longer term view to de-risk the company, is further integration of our supply chain. And when we have control of a chemistry agnostic standardized BMS, that opens the door to start dealing directly with cell manufacturers. And we can then have multiple prongs for battery availability, where we can actually have an NMC battery module with a BMS, an LFP module with a BMS. We can bring modules in without a BMS utilizing the BMS we develop, but we can also then bring in right at the cell level and build it into the battery module, which we've started working on with our BMS. And the game plan here that we talked about previously is to make sure we continuously open up opportunity for battery availability and staying one step ahead of the electric vehicle market. Having our BMS allows us to do all of those integrations with the supply chain to safeguard the business on a go-forward basis as these VPPs start rolling out, which is going to increase the overall demand globally for energy storage systems quite dramatically. The other thing to keep in mind is that the channel opportunity when you have that BMS opens up almost everywhere, because every battery needs one of these. So you talk about the EV market opportunity, you talk about the industrial storage opportunity, you talk about the commercial opportunity, and of course where we are residentially now. So the team has an abundance of core competencies around this type of development. We've been working with major battery manufacturers now going on 6 years. We've pointed out so much advancement in BMS capability, even with some of our current partners, that it was time to put this on the Eguana map and start to de-risk the future business.
Would there be an opportunity to be selling or like making BMSs for other companies, or is the plan to focus primarily on Eguana Technologies core product of the Elevate, the Enduro?
We expect that we will open new channels with the BMS. It's a required part of a system that takes a battery, and it doesn't matter where that battery's headed. It's going to have a battery management system. We feel that we can do one that's, standardized, but more importantly, chemistry agnostic. There's going to be new chemistries that come out, and we want to make sure that we can work with all of them to, again, de-risk the supply chain. So there will be opportunity to sell the BMS as a standalone, as a module, and of course into our current channels.
Here's a question from Rob Generos. I'm sure you've been asked this before, but what's the battery lifespan and how long is your warranty?
On an ESS product, or I'll assume it. I'll assume it's on the standard Evolve product line. Yeah, it's 10 years. Okay. However, we will point out that the topology in the solar PV days was a 20-year. So we're very comfortable on the 10-year warranty, which is the industry standard. Okay.
So let's you mentioned VPPs. Let's get into that, especially now that we have Brent on. So Brent, here's a question for you. What is a VPP? Who are the players? Where is this space going?
Thank you, Steve. I was just about to ask that.
The VPP is a really simple idea. There's a lot of flavors and ideas around it, and that's because it's so flexible. But really, a virtual power plant is an aggregation of distributed resources, solar and storage primarily, that can work together to provide the same service to the grid that something like a peaking plant or another generator would provide. The virtual part of it is just the fact that it doesn't exist in one place. It's spread out through hundreds or thousands of locations to add up to the megawatts of power that you need. The trick with virtual power plants is getting them out there and making sure they're going to deliver what is required when the request is made. So basically, it's a big industrial network of smaller power generation sources that work together to act like a larger power generator.
So effectively decentralized power production for the grid?
Decentralized power production for the grid is really what it is, and that's the goal. That's what Eguana's all about, and has always been all about, is getting those systems out there and not depending on these big projects and big generators to deliver power where we need it. These systems can be deployed as they're being deployed today by tradesmen, by electricians that are going to be installing this on people's houses for their own reasons and building up that capacity. And if they can all network together, when it's time to deliver some peaking power to the grid, you don't need specialized infrastructure for that. You can draw on what's out there, and that's being deployed every day and every month.
Do you think that this is going to be a fragmented sort of business in terms of the batteries that we see on a VPP? Are we going to see a whole bunch of different or products, or do you think that we're going to primarily see a concentrated or like a few names that generally get attached to these projects?
I think, well, from a product perspective, there's going to be a limited number of products that are capable of delivering this service. But I think you will see a lot of different business models out there about how these are aggregated and how they're deployed and under what conditions, and especially in North America, where you've got different electricity markets at the state and provincial level. You're going to see lots of different players doing lots of different things as this market grows, and figure out where the value and what the best approach is.
Yeah, Steve, I think Brent's being a little reserved here. I mean, the vision that he had many years ago was to build the platform specifically for these markets. And one of the things that gave us the leadership position out there was not have to chase development to get ready for VPPs. We put those capabilities into the product coming out of the gate. It's taken a little bit longer, as I'm sure some of the longtime shareholders can testify to get to the VPP environment. However, it is starting to roll out now, and certainly the platform that Brent envisioned many years ago is going to work very, very well for the company and allow us to keep a pole position spot in VPP development.
How many
founded around VPPs with fuel cells about 20 years ago? So we licensed our technology to RWE Energy 20 years ago to use in VPPs with fuel cells.
How many VPPs are currently deployed globally today? I don't know if you can answer that, but is this something that is relatively like there's only a few of these, or are there like many of these around the world?
Like I said, it depends a bit on the definition. If you're looking for a VPP that's a true market participant in a competitive electricity retail environment, the best examples right now are in Australia, where you have the energy retailers who are in Australia, the people that would give you your power bill as a homeowner are actually aggregating these systems from their customers and providing services back to the wholesale market. So that would be the most advanced area in the world right now. But what you see across the US is a lot of utilities kind of doing it on their own outside of the competitive market and just starting to see that happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's take a question here. There was one, it literally took less than a minute for you to be on the show here, Justin, to get it about the website. I know that there's a few people that sort of have issues, sort of the overall marketing of the stock. I mean, I view it from the perspective of this was a 7-cent stock not that long ago that has hit all the way up to 60 cents, recently raised $20 million. Things seem to be going pretty well. I mean, obviously we want them to go to do better. I'll tell you, this is like the one stock my mom calls me about regularly and is like, Steven, Eguana hasn't traded any volume today, and it's the only one. Because, and I say, Mom, you got in this stock at like 22 cents 5 years ago. It wasn't looking so good. Things are moving in the right direction now. That just is an example of how sort of long I've been rooting for this thing. But let's answer the website question. When are shareholders, especially for those on the CEO message board who talk about it all the time, when are they going to get their website?
Yeah, it is a fair question, and I've stated in the past that our work is complete. That's absolutely the case. Our web developer, and I won't put the name because just in being conscious of how many emails they may get, but we are pushing them very, very hard. They have confirmed that we will see the website in May. Albeit that has been delayed due to capacity issues at their end, COVID related, unfortunately. But I would caution on the website relative to our business model, and we don't typically get questions from institutions or our partners or dealer partners on the website. So we are doing it. We do want to get that out there. It is completed. They are doing the infrastructure. So I would say before the end of May, based on the information that our developers giving us. From a marketing perspective, I mean, we've increased quite significantly interviews like this. I think this is our 10th interview since November, as well as some other outreach projects that we've done. But we have focused recently on the institutions and bringing more of an institutional base. We are doing a lot of one-on-ones, which you can imagine, and we are seeing some volume gain from that. I think our average trading volume is up 6 or 7x since the end of last calendar year. So we are seeing that pay off in some buying from the institutions. The institutions are focused on the VPP arena, if you will, Steve. That's what they're looking for. That's where you're going to see tens of thousands of energy storage systems move out. I mean, we have talked in the past about Itochu and their game plan of 80,000 systems, throughout the United States. They're very active in the Australian market as well. That seems to be where the focus is. So it's not just about marketing, via a website in a B2B type business model, utilizing contract manufacturing partners. However, that being said, we are pushing the developer much more aggressively at this point so that we can get that done, put a nail in it, and then get on to some more retail investor interaction, which we do have a section on the website to do that. So that's where that stands. But again, the bulk of the marketing recently has been driven through the institutions and the institutional type meetings. And we are happy with the uptake in the trading volumes on an average, and certainly, as you mentioned, going from 7 cents up to where we are now puts us in a very good position to lift off from here as we start ramping up those revenues.
Okay, we've got a whole bunch of questions here. Some of these seem to be so far into the weeds that I don't know which ones of these you can actually talk about. Trying to think here which one. Let's go with this one here. So you guys announced a program in Texas. What's the demand been like since announcing that Texas program?
So the announcement in Texas was a couple-fold to look at putting energy storage down into that market, but it was the start of building out our dealer program. We have brought on some dealers in Texas. However, and as we've stated before, the volume that you're going to see is going to happen in California, and that still remains the primary market driver for the company. Although we are gaining dealers in Texas through that program, and that was the intent of that program. What we did with that was we provided for up to the first 1,000 homeowners to look for a system to provide that to them. I'm not sure exactly how many systems the sales team has put specifically in Texas, but the major driver there was to build a dealer market for future growth in the state.
Okay. We've got a few questions here pertaining to Sonova. One says, have Sonova trials wrapped up? You guys never formally announced any sort of relationship with Sonova, so I'm not sure. I don't, to my knowledge.
I can clarify that, Steve, if you like. So Sonova, the Sonova VPP is the Itochu VPP. That's the relationship between Sonova and Itochu. Itochu, put a fairly significant investment into Sonova a couple of years ago to start developing VPPs. That's what really interested Eguana in accelerating with Itochu, because it was an investment from our perspective into installation capacity. Again, we're happy right now lifting off with hundreds of systems. But the game plan for this type of product is thousands and tens of thousands of systems. And we're looking at installation capacity to do that. So when we saw that investment into Sonova from Itochu, we knew they were getting ready to do that. As for the trial, the trial remains ongoing until the final certification of the Moitsa-based system is complete. At that point, we will start to see a rollout into a VPP through Itochu / Sonova, if you will. So not to confuse the group, but if you're looking at the Sonova VPP and the Itochu VPP, that is the same virtual power plant objective.
From Craig Campbell. I know Craig. Craig, thanks for watching. He normally has pretty sophisticated questions. How does a VPP differ from a forward capacity grid asset such as Sonova's 85 megawatt grid flexibility development with ISO New England to be installed over the next 3 years? Can you guys, are you guys familiar with that at all?
I can answer that. It's so the forward capacity market is one market that a VPP could deliver services into. As opposed to doing it with a large generator. So that's often how some of these nuclear and coal plants are still staying operational, especially in New England. But if you can put these fleets of systems there and reserve a portion of the capacity available on each system, that's power and energy. So the homeowner is not going to be able to use it during that period, but they would be compensated for having it available. And then you'd add all those up, and then you could offer megawatts of standby or forward capacity into that market.
Okay. Here we got a question from Jules. 1414. Does that mean you're waiting on your partners, Itochu and Q-Cells, to tell you when you can make specific announcements? That's kind of a bit of a loaded leading question there, but in general, before you announce stuff with a partner, they do have to sign off. I think
Yeah, you've got that right, and we're not bound certainly or directed or told from either Itochu or Q cells. This is the progression of the company from the dealer model, which we wanted to put in place to deliver over the next few years, kind of over that 100 million mark, and then roll into the VPPs. That's really what the game plan is. But how we tend to look at the market, Steve, is there's a lot of players out there. There's different categories. We want to talk to all of them based on the platform that we have. We're going to see fairly consistently over the next few years, different energy management software companies come to the table who want to get their technology onto the grid. We've designed that perfect platform for the VPP network and the homeowner for self-consumption networks as well. And we wanted to open up that so that they could get tied into the grid and take part in this grid modernization. So that was the original plan. And from that perspective, and obviously I can't go into specifics, but we are talking to most, if not all, of the majors that are in the market right now, looking out kind of in that 6 months to 24 months to move their software and some of the objectives they have on the Eguana platform. So that's really the two-piece strategy, was to lift off through the dealer model and then start to layer on the VPP networks after that.
Do you have any sense when there was talk of Itochu was working on a VPP? Do you guys have any sense of, like, are we months away from an announcement there, years away? What's the because before I think we were talking about the spring, but these things never happen exactly on schedule.
Yeah, what we had said, previously, we didn't expect to see any movement from Itochu until the second half of the year. We are still looking at the second development with Itochu to take that, what we call the Moixa-based Evolve 2 certification. But just from a VPP perspective, and Brent, you may want to jump in here as well, this isn't going to be an announcement of, X VPP is now done. What you'll see more likely than not is, 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 unit increments as they roll out a VPP. So that's one thing to understand. Now, obviously, a 2,000 or 3,000 unit order is a fairly significant order, and that's the level that we would expect to start the rollout. But it's not going to be all in one shot. It will be rolled out consistently over a number of years.
Brent, anything to add to that?
Well, that's right, and that's the real advantage of a VPP, is that it's incremental and flexible. So you start building it out in a certain area, you have a need, things change, you want to focus on another area, you just move the activity over there, and you kind of are building it as you go and building that capacity. And you're not waiting 10 years for some new plant to come on, and then you don't really need it where it is anymore. So yeah, that's how VPPs will roll out.
Okay, so got one last question for you. I'm going to ask it on behalf of Jay Lutz / at the deep dive _CA, the greatest Twitter handle out there. What's the likelihood that we could get Jay? He just moved into a new house out in the country. What's the likelihood that we could buy a Evolve? Or he could buy an Evolve and have it installed at his new farmhouse in Saskatchewan?
100%. Let's take the order. We're all about taking orders.
Yeah,
okay.
Love to hear it.
That's an easy one. Yeah, let's get that place in Saskatchewan outfitted with an Evolve.
Perfect. Great marketing materials.
Yeah. We'll have it on the Twitter feed of the deep dive _CA regularly. We're not joking about that, by the way. We would legitimately. I told Jay I'll pay for half of it if he gets one installed, just so that I can have a sense of how well these work and get some feedback from somebody that I know who actually has a unit. Yeah,
we were being sincere as well with the the Evolve certified right across North America. So let's chat offline and we'll put that in motion.
Do you guys have an installer that would come to Saskatchewan? Like how does that work?
I'll tell you what, our head technical trainer is from Saskatchewan, and I'm sure any reason for him to go out there would be welcome. So we can get you the best technical installer that we have to get that done for you.
That's great.
We got lots of systems in Alberta and BC. I'd love to add one in Saskatchewan.
Perfect.
All right, well, look, there you guys go to the Eguana shareholders. We just closed the sale of a unit.
Yes,
didn't close it yet, but well, guys, thanks so much for taking the time to hop on here. We really appreciate this. I know that you guys have a shareholder base, including both my mom and my father-in-law. I've got a lot of people that are in this thing that are rooting for you guys. I'm super excited about where the future goes with this story. It's exciting to have Brent on for the first time. I'm sure that a lot of the shareholders will be sending us questions afterwards, specifically about some of the history and where you think things are going. So thanks so much for doing this, guys. I look forward to big announcements, and I hope you guys will continue to come back on as the story continues to evolve.
Nicely played, Steve. It's certainly going to get very exciting, I think, for the shareholders. The team is really pumped up right now, given the position. We are removing all the hurdles that we bumped up in the past. Inventory is rolling in. Shipments are now rolling out. We're targeting into that June liftoff quarter and beyond, and it's going to be a significantly different ride and I think a much more fun ride for the shareholders. So thanks for having us, and certainly we'll come back anytime.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jay, very quickly here, let's wrap it up. Anything going on at the dive this afternoon?
This afternoon, we actually have our deep dive on cruise automation. That should be out in 20 minutes here. We ran over a normal hour-long show here, so it should be out right away here. On top of that, we have some earning previews. TrueLeave is reporting before market open tomorrow, and GTI is reporting right after market close today. So a couple things going on in the cannabis world. Outside of that, I want to give a shout out to First Must Grow Biologics, who is a client. They saw some positive results from greenhouse trials against root rot disease that they released this morning, and Exploits Discovery, who saw newfound gold, as well as Eric Sprott, each individually input a further $4 million into the company. So $8 million raised exclusively for those two partners, each of which has between 15 to 19% ownership now in the company. So, I mean, they're getting some very, very strong, call them institutional grade shareholders, right? So great to see for them. Michael Collins is doing a great job, and they're set to start drilling right away here on 5 separate targets. So lots to come this year from them, I think.
I've been trying to talk the management team over at Exploits into doing a reality show about.
I know you've been doing this. I didn't hear anything about it for a little while, but I think it'd be absolutely hilarious.
It was actually one of I think it was somebody from the management team that suggested that they've got a whole bunch of colorful characters that work on their staff. And I said, well, we got this fantastic video editing staff out in the Philippines. So, like, why don't we send some camera crews down and try to make a show out of you guys searching for gold? And I think it'd be a fantastic show.
I mean, no offense by this. I would love to see a bunch of newfies exploring for gold. I think it would just be the best comedy there is. Like, I would love to watch it.
We could have that come on at 10 a.m. every Saturday, followed by gardening tips with SmallCapSteve
from Farmer Steve of Toronto. Oh, that's great.
Okay, guys, quick little disclaimer here. Nothing we talk about on the show is a buy or sell recommendation. It's for informational and entertainment purposes only. If you're looking for that sort of thing, go find somebody who's licensed, not somebody like myself or somebody like Jay. We are not licensed. If you're watching us on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, please subscribe, hit the like button, share it. We appreciate it. Lastly, guys, you could have spent your last hour in any screening place in the world, but you chose to spend it with us. I sincerely appreciate that. We will be back tomorrow at noon. Enjoy the rest of your trading day. It's crazy out there. Unprecedented economic times. Inflation running in hot.
Is it really unprecedented?
It's unprecedented. I mean,
I don't know. Ask Germany.
all right. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
I work too hard for it. And lead is please don't mess up the morning.